Every January you get people saying that this year is going to be their year, but these 10 creators actually went and did it. Woof woof! Hey guys, it's me Marcus, aka the Mad Dog, and we're back with another video. For a fun little video to kick off the new year, I wanted to take 10 of the most popular comic creators and try and pick a single year that was just the absolute best for them to prove that over the next 12 months, anything is possible. I looked through their entire bibliography thanks to Wikipedia, and that's pretty much the only place that I'm getting this information from. So if something's incorrect, blame them. But in no particular order, and kicking this list off, I've got Stan Lee. And I decided to go for 1964 as his year that just seemed to be the absolute best. Because just looking at the books that he was on, he was doing Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, The Avengers, The X-Men, even though that probably wasn't the best era for that series, Journey into Mystery, he created Daredevil, Tales of Suspense featuring Iron Man, and also Tales of Astonish featuring Ant-Man. That is at least 9 titles that he was on, and from some creators in the modern era, you can't even get 9 issues out of them in a year. I know, of course, with Stan Lee, a lot of his work was dependent on the artists that he worked with, but to kick off this list, I thought I would start with the guy that is pretty much the face of comics for people who don't read comics. And even though it was a different time for comics, to be able to write that many titles at the same point is just amazing. And as well, if you're looking to get into the Stan Lee and Jack Kirby era of the Fantastic Four, you can pick up the recently reprinted omnibuses from the channel sponsor, Organic Price Books. They've got great packaging, fast shipping, and amazing customer services. And if you use code WOOFWOOF, you'll get $2 off your order. And a little secret between you and me to make both of our 2022s the best year, you can use that code as many times as you like. Number 9, and one of my personal favourite creators, we've got Robert Kirkman, and I decided to go with 2010. But when I looked at Stan Lee we were talking specifically about comics, but in 2010, Robert Kirkman pretty much won at everything. So starting it off with the books that he was writing, he was doing Invincible, The Walking Dead, The Astounding Wolfman, and also the often forgotten Haunt that he did with Todd McFarlane. The Walking Dead also won him the Eisner Award for the best continuing series that year, and honestly, I recently reread this and did a review of it, and it still holds up today, so I'd recommend checking that out. From a business perspective, even though he was already a partner at Image Comics at this time, he co-founded his own imprint called Skybound, which is still going today and is successful, and also allowed him to write Guardians of the Globe. This may sound like a negative, but he wrote his last issue for Marvel Comics with an X-Force annual, which meant that he was free to just focus on his creator-owned stuff, which is what he wanted for a number of years. And everything that I just said would already qualify 2010 to be his best year, but AMC ordered the pilot for The Walking Dead. This then got picked up and adapted into its own series. It's had countless spin-offs, games, and everything started from that in 2010. It kind of really puts things into perspective, because I consider last year a success because of the fact that I just didn't die. Number 8, and another creator that there was many years that I could pick from, but it's none other than Mark fucking Waid. And I decided to go with 1998 because he had a plethora of great titles that were coming out. So he was working on Captain America, The Flash, he'd done his spin-off for Kingdom Come, which was called The Kingdom. He wrote the fantastic JLA Year 1, which I recommended recently in my Where to Start Flash. And beyond just that, he also took over the writing duties of the main JLA title, so he had massive shoes to fill, but he still managed to find a way to run with them. I wanted to put Mark Waid in this list, and when I was looking through his information, there were so many different years that I could have picked, but I think because of the fact that he was working on The Flash, which was a character that he'd managed to make his own and define a little bit more than anybody had done before, so I'm talking specifically with Wally West and not Barry Allen, finally getting his chance on DC's flagship book, and also revolutionising Captain America after he'd had quite a few bad years in the public eye. How could 1998 not be the absolute best year for Mark Waid? Number 7, I've got Ed Brubaker, and I decided to go with 2006. Originally I was going to put 2005 because of Catwoman, Gotham Central, Batman the Man Who Laughs, and also his work on Sleeper. However, in 2006 he was on an absolute warpath with the amount of books that he was writing. So straight up he was continuing his work on Captain America, which was bringing so many people into that title. He'd also successfully brought back the Winter Soldier, which not a lot of people thought he could do. He also managed to bag a Harvey Award because of that title. He also took over from Daredevil, even though fans at the time were disappointed that Bendis was leaving the title. But when Brubaker started writing, it really didn't lose a lot of pace or energy, and he managed to make that title his own. He wrote books of Doom, took over on Uncanny X-Men, he started Criminal with Sean Phillips, which is one of the greatest creator-owned series of all time, and he also did his first work on Iron Fist in a Civil War tie-in. But when I think about the amount down to titles that he was writing in 2006, the fact that he won an award, and also that he set up his reputation as a great creator-owned writer, this was definitely the year that had to make it on this list. Number 6, I'm going with Mark Millar in 2008. Now looking at this entry, you might think that it doesn't deserve to be on here because he wasn't really writing a lot of books, but honestly, if you ask any of these creators if they could have had Mark Millar's 2008, they'd probably say that they would, because they aren't going to sit back after a year and go, yeah, I know I made many millions this year, but I only wrote 3 books. But he did write 3 books for Marvel, with Fantastic Four, Marvel 1985, and also his highly acclaimed Old Man Logan. But the reason why his 2008 was just the best year is because of the fact that the Wanted movie came out. This was a more obscure Top Cow title that he'd done a few years before, and even though the movie had pretty much nothing to do with that book, and it's something that I'd really like to do a video on, that would have really helped him to enjoy 2008 and bring his work into a more public eye. And that wasn't all in terms of the movie scene, because Kick-Ass, a series that also debuted in 2008, had the movie rights sold before the first issue was even released. After 2008, Mark Millar was in that upper echelon of comic creators that everybody wishes they could be a part of. Number 5, and with the year 1999, this might come as a bit of a surprise, but I'm going with Alan Moore. Yes, 1985 was a very close second because of the fact that he was doing V for Vendetta, and he also would have started work on Watchmen. But before Y2K even had a chance to possibly happen, even though it was never going to, Moore did Supreme the Return, some work on Youngblood, but also launched 4 of his biggest titles with the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, Top 10, Promethea, and the criminally underrated Tom Strong. Yep, still disappointed that that compendium got cancelled. So really think that this was a year that Moore managed to revolutionize himself. But the reason why I think that 1999 was a great year for Alan Moore was because of the fact that he still had hope for the upcoming adaptations of From Hell and League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and it's very well documented what he thought about that after it was released. Number 4, and probably the most difficult one to choose a single year for, because I've got Brian Michael Bendis with 2003. There was about a 5-year stint between about 2001 and 2006 where Brian Michael Bendis was pretty much the only creator that seemed to exist. But just looking at the year 2003, he won an Eisner Award. Actually, he won 2. He won one for Best Writer and another for Best Continuing Series with Daredevil. And honestly, if you asked me, what title did I think Brian Michael Bendis won an Eisner Award in that year for, I couldn't tell you because he was just writing so many great ones. He also won the Comic Buyer's Guide Writer of the Year for the 2nd year in a row. But just look at the books that he was working on in this year, because you had Daredevil, Ultimate Spider-Man, Alias, he was still working on Powers, he was doing some work for Ultimate X-Men when he was actually still pretty good. And yes, I'm an Ultimate Marvel fan, that's what got me into comics to begin with, so I'm always going to vouch for that. And it was very difficult to choose between 2003 and 2004 because that was when he took over the Avengers. But in 2003, he was already laying some of the groundwork for that, so I think this still counts as his best year. And his reputation shouldn't be defined by the work that he's done in the last couple of years. This video is trying to highlight these creators at their absolute peak and try and bring some positivity to this channel. But when you look at those titles that he's working on, despite what he's done in the years since, they are still quite highly acclaimed. And they're also coming back into prominence with a lot of these getting omnibuses or reprints. Again, you can get the majority of these from organic price books. I'd recommend doing that. Number 3, and I'm going with Brian K. Vaughan with the year 2017. Now yes, in comparison to other entries on this list, it might look like he wasn't writing a lot of titles, but looking at the titles that he was writing and also the impact that his comics had had outside of the industry means that this has to go down as his year. I also think Brian K. Vaughan might have another year where he could also have just the best time. Every time it looks like he's peaked and done everything that he can do, he comes out with something new. But in 2017, he won 2 Eisner Awards for Best Writer and Best Continuing Series with Saga. He wrote Paper Girls on top of that, which was one of my favourite reads of last year. He did work on the first 2 episodes of Runaways, which, let's be honest, if anybody's going to watch a series, they are probably the most important ones. And FX got the first couple of scripts for Y the Last Man after that series had pretty much been in development hell for a good couple of years. And in 2017, there was still a lot of hope for how that adaptation would pan out, so let's focus on that instead of what we actually got. Number 2, and another creator that it's great to look at their heyday compared to where the reputation is now, because I'm going with Frank Miller in 1986. Again, yes, I could just highlight the titles that he was on, but when you think about how those titles actually impacted the rest of the comics industry and also the characters that he was working on, this is just a great year for anyone. So The Dark Knight Returns was released, you also had Elektra Assassin, and also the fantastic Daredevil Born Again. He started doing his work for the upcoming titles Batman Year One and Ronin, and in 1986 he won the Kirby Award for the best single issue with Daredevil 227. Daredevil Born Again also won in Best Writer Artist, and he also won the Eagle Award for the favourite comic book writer. People look at Frank Miller now and tend to write him off because of some of the series that he's done in recent years, like All-Star Batman and Robin, but when looking at him in the 80s when he was truly in his prime, it's just phenomenal, and I don't think that there's many other creators that have really reached the heights that he did. Before we jump into the last pick, I'm just going to say here there's not going to be any kind of honourable mentions, because of the fact that if you enjoy this video, let me know in the comment section below. Make sure you're giving it a thumbs up and share this where you can, and I'll do a sequel where I do 10 more creators and the best year that they had. But the last creator that's going to make it onto this list is Todd McFarlane, and the year should come as no surprise because it's 1992. Yes, this was a big year for Todd McFarlane. He did that pin-up in Superman Special Issue 1, which was just fantastic, and I think more than earns him a spot on this list. Like, he did a few other minor things throughout this year. I think he created a title. What was it now? Spawn. Yes, even though Todd McFarlane focused the majority of his energy on this one title, what that one title did for him meant that this was just the best year. He was also one of the 6 original creators that founded Image Comics, something that was considered very risky at the time. A lot of people didn't know if it was going to be successful, but Todd McFarlane was pretty much at the forefront of that, and he kicked it off with his own creator-owned title, Spawn. And as soon as it was released, movie producers were already trying to get the rights of it. Because of that one title alone, it helped skyrocket Todd McFarlane's net worth over the next couple of years to over $300 million. I don't even know what I could do with that much money. If I just had $1 million, I'd probably just be set up. And I'm the guy that's standing on the other end of a camera, so I can probably get about £3 from doing this video. So to back yourself that much and to know that this was something that was going to be successful for you meant that this has to be his best year. And he also won a National Cartoonist Society Award and also an Inkpot Award in that same year. So even though if you look at the number of books that he worked on in that year, it might not look like he had a lot going on, everything that he did in those 12 months meant that this was the seed that he'd planted so that he could eventually grow into getting massive success in the years that came later. But that's the video, and in the comment section below, let me know what some of the creators are that you'd like to see in a future video. Share this video where you can because it's a massive support, but I guess that's the video, and until next time, just make sure that you stay safe and stay mad, all you dogs. Woof woof! See you at the next video.